Gamescom 2019.
What we're looking forward to.
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, as always, Mr.
Saul Bridges bringing you, I hope, episode 127. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure it's 126, right? Because you,
Nope,
hold on.
nope,
Because
yeah.
you always make odds.
I make evens.
Okay, then we're going to say 127. This is actually one of the first weeks in a long time that I genuinely don't recall.
Yeah, so much has happened this week, and I haven't felt great.
I've done a lot this week, and that's been the thing that's been surprising to me the most. On top of, typically the working thing has slowed me down from doing a lot of other stuff, but I decided to take a break of my own. And
it's 125. We're 2 episodes ahead of ourselves.
There's no way it's 125, is it?
It's 125.
All right, well, 125, I don't know. I'm just going to say that Saul is very, very likely right.
I'm looking at the thumbnail.
Saul.
Right there.
I see it too. All right, well, 125. In case you don't know who we are, like we said, Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast where we talk about things from PlayStation. What you looking at there, Saul?
I smell something. It smells like cologne all of a
You
sudden.
smell what The Rock is cooking? I don't know. There's no cologne, so...
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, where we talk about PlayStation and there, of course, other publishers and other manufacturers and how they pertain to PlayStation, things that we think that they should do, like the competition, things that they shouldn't do, like the competition. Of course, if you want to watch us on YouTube in video format, you can do so and watch this lovely set and see us gab our lips around. But if you don't want to watch our ugly faces, then you can go over to podcast services. And you know what?
Yeah, if you don't start watching on YouTube, we're going to pull all of our stuff from podcast services. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I can't blame people for not watching a podcast. The only podcasts I watch are Joe Rogan podcasts.
See, I'm weird. I watch pretty much any podcast. And if I can watch it, I'm going to do it that way. So we're just at a weird difference,
Yeah, I guess so.
But anyway, if you want to find us on podcast services, you can do so on things like Google Play Music, iTunes, or more importantly, you can do so on Podbean. We're going to try that thing out because I never really looked into Podbean, but then we
were on it already.
We're on it. But I never really looked into it. And one of our patrons, Mr. Rude Cold, mentioned Podbean, and I decided to look into it. And you know what? I'm going to try something. If we talk about Podbean, which I have no problem doing, then they'll promote the show as well. So I guess we're going to try and see how that rabbit hole works out. But yeah, you can do so over there. If you want to chime into the things that we're talking about on YouTube, of course, you can do so in the comments section. Apparently, Podbean also has a comment section if you download the app, so you can also do that over there.
Cool.
But if you listen on other podcast services and still want to give your opinions in, of course, you can find us on social media. So our Twitter is at Triangle SQRD. That's our handle. You can find us on Facebook in the group Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. You can join our moment-to-moment, day-to-day life as much as we can be on there, as well as the rest of the community over on our Discord, where we have things like general topics or general discussion for everything, podcast open discussion, where you can talk about the things we talk about in the podcast with us in real time, as well as other community members. You can find things like the Community's Take section, where we ask you a question at the end of every episode in regards to that, and then repost it on social media as well as Discord, and kind of get y'all's opinions on the things that we talked about in the last episode to inject a little bit of community take into this and other things. So with that being said, the last thing to cover up is, if you like what we're doing here at all, then consider going over to our Patreon, and becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month. You can get things like Reader Mail and Dickish at Best, which is our off-topic podcast that we do that is not safe for work, whereas this typically is. You can get those early, as well as some other stuff, so go check those out. But let's get this show on the road the right way, and the right way is always, Saul, what you been up to, what you been playing. I have a big week for once. So
I have a similar week than the last 6 weeks.
Of nothing but a little bit of Destiny?
A little bit of Destiny. I did get to raid with my clan, which is great. We could think we're going to try to do something tonight, but it looks not quite hopeful on our clan Discord. But I did finally play through the DLC of Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, so
And
now all of it or just the Ring City?
All of it. So what's really cool that I did not know is that I did not know that Ashes of Ariandel lead into the Ring City.
Okay.
In terms of the interconnectivity.
So now, and I'm assuming, so Ashes hit first and then the Ring City hit second?
Yeah, and
there's a chronological order in terms of what happens story-wise?
Well, yeah, and I knew that you could always access Ashes of Ariandel at the chapel the cleansing chapel in Dark Souls 3, and I knew that you could always access the Dreg Heap, which is the ring city, in the final area of the game. Once you go to the last area via a bonfire, you could go to another bonfire that transports you to that area, which I've actually kind of explored a little bit of that area, but I've never once stepped foot into Ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool. I did enjoy my time there a lot. I do think that Ashes wasn't the best Souls DLC, but it was still fine. Ring City, on the other hand, was absolutely phenomenal.
Those are weird when you have, because like what you're saying is that they do have at least a story progression to them to an extent.
Yeah.
It's always weird to me when that happens in games, Dishonored being one of them, when you have one, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do. Anyway, you have 2 DLCs that have a flow, like they sequel out to each other essentially in some form or fashion.
Well, the story,
and yet the first one is a little weaker than the second one. It's
the story kind of does that, but what is really interesting is that in the lore, Gwendolyn, who's of course, or Gwen, Lord Gwyn, Gwendolyn is his son. Lord Gwyn, who's the main boss of Dark Souls 1, the main antagonist, I guess. He's the lord that doesn't want to die or link the flame or anything. He created the Ring City and didn't tell anybody about it except for a select few, and this is where you finally get to see that. So it's really kind of cool to go there. It also houses one of my favorite covenants of all time, and it's called the...
Now, is this exclusive to the DLC?
Yeah,
in this
you
time
can
around?
only access it, and I'll tell you why. Because it is called Spears of the Church, and it is a boss covenant. And what that is you equip the covenant, and you'll be running around, and you'll get summoned, and you are the boss. Your player character fights another player who is fighting the boss. They go in there, and there's a little painted guardian that summons you.
Okay.
And anytime you fight that boss, unless you're playing offline, I don't actually know how that works. I'm sure they summon an NPC boss, but you will fight another player as the boss. The boss health at the bottom is your health.
Okay.
And you still see it at the top. So every time you get hit, you see a chunk get knocked off at the bottom. So it's like a PvP covenant, but it's a boss. You're a boss. So you get summoned in, and they have to fight you to progress on through the game. It's really cool.
Yeah, that is a very, very different setup.
Yeah, it's super cool. And the final 2 bosses of that are my favorite bosses of Dark Souls 3.
And this is specifically Ring City?
Yeah, and they've passed Abyss Watchers as my favorite boss because they're 2 really, really cool bosses and really, really challenging bosses. But yeah, I did play a fair amount of Dark Souls 3. There's still 2 things that I'm tinkering with in terms of my next Let's Play. And I still haven't made my mind up for it because the way I do these Let's Plays, just to let everybody know for Saw Plays, is that if I find a build online that I like and I want to play with that build, I will watch a video or a guide on that build, and then I will interject my own guide into it, and I have to write all of this out. And I have a full guide written out of something that I want to do for Dark Souls 1, which is a soul level 1 build. And this is kind of going through of what, see, and I literally will write out a roadmap and a guide on what I need to do in terms of a checklist for myself before I play, or what I think is going to work at least.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to do Dark Souls 1 soul level 1 if I do anything soon. It just kind of really just depends on my life, but that's kind of been it for this week.
That depends on my life. I get what you mean. It's just a weird saying.
It can be very dark.
It almost sounds ominous depending on how you go into it. Yeah, well, depending on my life.
Also, for those that have ever played Dark Souls 3, this is actually the perfect time to get back into it because as of recording this, there is an event going on that started Saturday the 17th of August, and it's called Return to Lothric. And it's that yearly event where it kind of goes in order. And so, like, next year will be Dark Souls 1 again, where they're going to be, like, it's going to be around the launch window of Dark Souls Remastered, or maybe even Dark Souls 1, where it's, you know, return to Dark Souls 1. And everybody starts playing again. It gets really active. You see a lot more summon signs everywhere, messages everywhere. It's like the game launched again in terms of everything you see around the world. It's really cool.
So is this an event that, because I've actually never partaken in it, but I've heard of them, but I've never looked into see, is this something that that From Software actually does, or is this more of a community-based
That's
thing?
a good question. I don't know. I don't know if From Software does this. They might have done one that kickstarted everything.
That everybody thought was cool and just kind of followed.
Yeah, and so
because like Demon Souls, they cut the servers for that. Yet we've seen people go back and actually make the game live completely again because they wanted to. You know?
And that's what's really cool. And it is really, as somebody who plays Dark Souls 3 and 1 on and off, I know how active it is. And Dark Souls 3 never died. It was always fairly still active.
Yeah.
But to see everything now, it's like when you first like beat a boss. And then all of a sudden, there was messages everywhere saying, like, I did it. Or you go to a boss gate, and there's, tens of, maybe even hundreds of summon signs scattered. And it's just like a really bright, colorful walkway up to the boss of, like, summon me kind of thing. It's really cool. I really enjoy seeing it again.
I've never thought about it moving away from when I play the games. Because I'm not like you. I tend to play them one and done. Even though I really enjoy them. It's just... I already have problems trying to keep up with the games I want to keep. I want to actually play, and I have a huge backlog. But I never really thought about it. I assume that the way you're talking about this is that when they've seemed like they've been dead, if they've gone on for long enough and they're kind of gone. I never really thought about it. How long do the messages stay in the game?
The messages only are there when somebody's online. If I wrote a message, the message goes away if I go offline.
Wow.
Yeah. So
okay.
So if you see a message out in the wild, somebody's online.
Now, when you log back in, does their message show again?
Yeah. Okay. My messages will stay there, and I'll get healed if somebody rates it.
Wow.
So like if somebody runs around and rates it. So I've been leaving messages everywhere.
My little Owen Wilson wow there.
Wow. Yeah. I've been leaving messages everywhere for people, like showing them the secrets or like just the path to go, or like, you remember the tree jump to get on top of Firelink? I put a little message at the top of Firelink so that somebody can say like, hey, there's a message there. Can I get there somehow? And they'll maybe mess with the tree if they don't know how. And then it says, congratulations, you did it. And then I have like, you can program emotes into messages in Dark Souls 1. So I did like the jumping for joy emote.
Yep.
So it's fun. It really is. And Dark Souls 3 is like, and 1 are two games that like, if I want to get my mind off things and like listen to a podcast and get away from everything, those are my go-to. Cause it's so like, it's very, for me, it's very, I'm trying to think. It's so involved that like I have to constantly think of like where I'm going next.
Yeah, so it allows you to get your mind off of other stuff.
Yeah, but it's so backseated at the same time that I can listen to a podcast.
Gotcha.
So I know exactly what to do and where to go, but it still requires backseat thinking in a way.
Sure.
Secondary thinking, and then I can listen to a podcast and I don't have to worry about, it's not like playing a game for the first time where I have to like listen to dialogue or anything like that.
Yes.
But it's not like playing Destiny where I kind of just mindlessly can go through Destiny. It's like, it requires thought, but it's not.
Well, Destiny gets weird because if you're playing with other people, becomes the.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about single though.
But yeah,
like solo.
Exactly. I got you.
But what have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Man, my week has been stacked. So of course I got the Bloodstained Platinum, which I think I had by the time we recorded last week, thanks to Liam. But I
think you shouted
following off from that, I think I did too. But following from that, I know I at least shouted out that he was helping me prior to it, if nothing else. But following off of that, I did pick my Vita back up and started playing SteamWorld Dig 2 again, as I've done off and on. And I'm happy to say that as of yesterday, I actually beat it. I'm surprisingly close yet far from the platinum, and it's mainly because like the number of trophies I have left are very little, but the amount of things you have to do to get those trophies are just annoying, and I'm not sure that I'm ready to go into the game like that again. One of them is like you have to, in the game, you get a rating based off of all the things you've done. So you, how much wealth you accrued in the game, how many times you died in the game. And the only way to get a gold star from death in the game is to not die even once. So you have to go through the entire game without dying, which is not that crazy if you play on easy for sure. And there's no, as far as I've seen, there's no difficulty barrier to it. But you have to get, there's 4 different things that you can get ranked on. You have to get a gold star in all of them in the same playthrough, which is weird because time is one of them. Wealth is one of them, death is one of them, and I can't remember the last one. But regardless, time and wealth kind of fight each other, because to get to the max of wealth, you have to pretty much get the entire map cleared of its, whatever you want to call it, resources. Mm-hmm. So it gets pretty weird into that, but I enjoyed that game a lot. I like the style of game a lot, and it kind of has got me wanting to ping back into downloading Super Motherload back onto my PS4 and playing some more of that. I don't know that I will, just because I have so much stuff going on. But also there was a sale going on last week, so I decided to pick up Wizard of Legend and Enter the Gungeon, because I've played Enter the Gungeon a million times, but I've never owned it. So I picked both of those up. They're very similar games, so I've been playing Wizard of Legend. It's very much for me, those types of games are what I kind of think of when I think about the game that you can put on and you can do other stuff with them because it's kind of backseat thinking, but you still got to pay attention.
Right.
Since there's not really a story going on in those games as much, all you're really doing is you're having to focus on enemies and stuff. So since there's no dialogue to completely contend with, you can put something else on and enjoy it that way, or you could just play it and enjoy it, you know. But I'm probably going to start doing that, as that's what I like about those games. That's also what Dead Cells was for me.
And like Death Gambit.
Yeah. And Death Gambit, because there was a little bit more of a story to it. I didn't play it with any kind of podcast on, but in future runs like you do,
it was all
definitely
kind of
would
text,
work.
though. I those kind of games, like where it's text-based story, where I don't have to, like I can read. Like,
but what happens is I'll read what's on the screen.
You'll click next and you'll be like, what did I just read?
Not yet. Well, yeah, exactly. Because it's like if I'm listening to something else, the words start to conflate to each other. And I'm like, did I just read? And it'll be
That's when I just tune the words out for a couple seconds and read. But then I'm like,
what? But then I feel like I'm missing something.
Like, what kind of crazy stuff did Eddie Bravo say this time?
Exactly. So things like that happen. But I've enjoyed that quite a bit. I hopped into No Man's Sky VR, and boy, let me tell you,
I heard it's good.
It's so good. It's one of those things where, for it to have been added in post, it seems so thoughtful. It seems like the game was completely designed. Now, of course, some of this is because of changing things around to work with VR and outside of VR as both, letting it work in both. But some of it's just how mindful the game's already existing design was in terms of being able to easily support VR while making sure that the control schemes made a lot of sense. So I started with controller. And that was obviously felt normal. That's just playing the game, but now you have the ability to control your head. While I was playing with John Austin, and we were going through. Shout out to our boy. And I'm going to be playing Ryan. Hopefully you've gotten this back on and you can make enough time to play this in a little squad. We will do so, hopefully. But what was great, it's like loading in and realizing it's like, okay, I'm going to go to motion controls now. And you can move between them freely as you please. And motion controls are great. You can see your hands, the way they actually go into, like you have to pull the multi-tool off your back by doing the gesture, which was great. It feels good to do. When you go to do changes on stuff, you actually will point your other hand at the back of your other one, and you can get to your menus in a way that feels way better than the cursor ever did.
Cool.
And the thing that really just gets you is the sense of scope is so big. Like scope and scale of the world is so crazy that you immediately kind of start smiling the moment you get into a ship and start flying out into space and realize, like, and looking around, it's like, holy crap, I was just ear to ear grinning the whole time. Now, the only downside is that motion controls, typically when you're doing motion controls, or typically when you're doing flight controls in the game for that, definitely with spaceships, I'll normally keep inverted control, flight control on the up and down.
Yeah,
axis.
for spaceships, for like anything that requires something I think would use a stick, it has to be inverted.
Exactly. Now, what gets weird about that is because of the way they chose to implement. And it's still really cool, and I appreciate it because it's just different that it's a ship. The way they chose to implement flight controls with motion controls is really cool because you actually have the throttle level that you pull in real time, and then you also have the stick that you would use to steer. Well, because you don't have you have both hands doing this, and the way that they chose to orient the right hand for that, you don't end up holding the move controller directly up and down and then controlling it, like a stick would,
right,
which feels unfortunate. It's the only real downside of the thing I can really see, because instead you have to keep the motion control with the light facing outwards, and then you're trying to do these fine controls that just feel different. So me and John both found, even though he has a stick and is so used to inverted, that when you're doing the motion control, if you don't want to have to relinquish and over to a controller to keep flight feeling better in that regard, in terms of inverted.
You use a flight stick?
No, sadly. We tried. He has one.
But that's what I thought you were going with when you said that.
No, what we did is just, if you're going to stay with motion controls, I would advise, and I think he would too after he went through it, turning your inverted off if you're going to use motion controls, because it actually helps a lot. When your hand's out, if it's up, doing this makes sense. When your hand's out, so if you can see.
So if you have a stick and you pull up, does your hole go
What
up?
happens is you got to do this. And it just, because of the fact that you can pull up so well, but down is so much harder to do your wrist in a way that feels as much as control. Because think about it this way. Think about when you have the stick in your hand like this, and you go down and up. You have a better range of movement. But when you're holding the controller like this, you're already holding it this way, and you're having to kind of.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel right. So changing it made a world of difference and made the game feel so fun.
So now when you actually pull back, you go up.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So it works, but you can also easily use motion controls the entire time you're out of the ship, and then the moment you get into the ship, you can just pick the controller up and play if you wanted to.
So have they fixed the problem that I have, the inherent problem with No Man's Sky, where it's, I'm going to go do this, and gather material for this, but on the way to that, I have to gather other materials because I keep running out of resources.
That's always going to be part of the game, but there's things that they've done that once you get in the groove of being there, you're set up to where you're in kind of like a tumble. It's going to tumble down the way you need to, but you do have to go through that to start, no matter
That's
what.
my biggest problem with the game is that if I'm going to go mine,
it's kind of like Minecraft. I mean, and
even Minecraft doesn't do that though.
Well, but they do in the sense of,
but it's much longer, I guess.
But it's more involved on No Man's Sky, and I agree with you. But that's partially because of scope and scale of No Man's Sky and what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
But you're right. But when you're thinking about Minecraft, it's like the same thing exists, just to a slightly less annoying, depending on who you are in nature. Because it's like, well, I gotta go, but now I'm trying to do this one thing, and I'm trying to get diamonds. But while I'm going to get diamonds, I'm having to worry about my hunger. And while I'm having to worry about my hunger, it's like they tumble around the same way.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as a quick process.
Yes, I understand.
And especially for materials, because like if I'm going to go get diamond, chances are if I start with the wooden pickaxe, that pickaxe is going to go into a stone pickaxe, and then what is it after that? Iron pickaxe. You know, that iron pickaxe isn't going to break on the way to getting diamond, which is the problem of like you run out of resources.
Well,
with your mining
eventually
gun.
it goes. You have to have the right pickaxe, but the same thing
iron
goes.
Pickaxe is what gets diamonds.
I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah,
I thought
you ain't going to kill an iron pickaxe before then.
I couldn't remember if it was gold or what. And it also depends on what you're doing, right? It really does. But it's the same thing. Is that you could be right before a diamond, and then your pickaxe does break, and then you have to go and you have to get the stuff needed to make another pickaxe,
it's way
or you have to teleport back.
Compared.
You're right. It's still different, but it's similar.
That's my only issue with the game. It feels like a chore to go do what I want to do.
As you start to build up your base, there's things that'll get this for you. Essentially, is what it comes down to.
So it's just like get through the little grindy moment in the beginning, or not even. It's not even grindy. It's just get through the.
You can set yourself up to where it's doing things for you in a lot of ways, but it does take the time for you to build these things out, and then that means that you've got to get the resources to build these things out.
What would that be? It's not grindy.
I mean,
I don't want to make it sound like it's grindy.
I would say it technically is a grind, but it's a purposeful grind.
It's like it's more of like I don't want to have to keep worrying about resource management.
Yeah, which is like it just depends on what you like. It's you could say simulation-y because in a way that's what you're worrying about, but it's not as simi as something like Elite Dangerous. If I'm remembering, I love Elite Dangerous,
and the thing about Elite Dangerous is that I'm not going to run out of resources unless I really mess up because of the nature of Elite Dangerous. Versus the nature of an what is it called? A generated game.
Okay, yeah.
Openly generated. What is it called?
Randomly generated.
Randomly generated.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't think today.
Yeah.
But it's that I may not find what I'm looking for on this planet, but I'm going to spend a while searching for it, but I'm going to run out of resources in that process.
Yeah.
And that's for material farming. I'm not talking about really anything else.
So just to kind of to show you what it is that helps that as you keep going is that there's tech that alleviates the need for how much fuel you're going to need to start off so that you're doing these things a lot less often, as well as having things that can sometimes get these materials for you. So the first thing is when you first start, you can only lift off 4 times before you run out of fuel to literally lift your StarCraft up,
right?
You know, and then you can start to get that to where first upgrade you have 5 times. You keep upgrading it, and it gets to a point where you can do it 10 times without any kind of problem. And the same thing happens with how much fuel it's going to use versus how much fuel you can carry. So you can put more fuel in at once, and you can kind of do these things a little more staggered out. But lastly, let's see. I played Anthem today. Before this, didn't get to play the Cataclysm event itself. As I'm doing the startup missions for Cataclysm, which there's 3 or 4 missions you have to do to get into it. And I'm planning on getting on after we get done recording with one of our patrons, Mr. Porter. Good friend, and hopefully one of our longtime listeners, Mr. RJ Loki, RJ Burger. I'm thinking of the MTV show, RJ Loki.
What is RJ Burger? Is that a TV show?
The Hard Times of RJ Burger. It's a MTV show, and it's the one where you probably remember it. It's the high school kid. He drops his basketball shorts fall off, and the whole school finds out that he's well endowed. That's where we're going to leave it.
I've never heard of it or seen it.
It's a great show. I love it to death. It got me through some weird times. But anyway, yeah, it's been a good week for that. While I also managed to watch the new Invader Zim movie, which was great. Felt like a perfect return to Invader Zim.
I need to watch the new Invader Zim and Rocco movie.
I've heard more complaints about Rocco's.
I have too.
But Rocco's an older show, being more modernized by nature. So I wonder if that plays a part in it.
Well, apparently that's what it is. Is like they're going to they're addressing like current things in our world, which is
always what Rocco's Modern Life was about.
Yeah, but it's so different from what you remember it is.
It's 20 years removed from the original Rocco's Modern Life that it gets weird. Whereas Invader Zim was always a newer show, and by being a sci-fi show, it was different in that it never feels like it's dated in the same way.
My problem with Invader Zim, and we'll get off this real quick because this is not PlayStation related, but my problem with Invader Zim was I love it, but it was too random-y. Like, I felt like I had ADD watching that show with everything that would happen.
Yeah, the movie's not going to be any better.
I know.
Well,
I think I might
know.
not like that as an adult. So.
I don't know, man. Actually, I really enjoyed it. It almost felt better than any of the Invader Zim episodes by nature of maybe because it was a little more drawn out, but it part of it comes down to like it gives a little bit of a redemption to Zim, who's normally incompetent completely, but then also still stays true to the fact that that's what the show is supposed to be about before it's all said and done. And then Dib kind of gets his redemption arc, even though he goes through some humiliation as well. It's really interesting how it works out, but I enjoyed it a lot. So if you like Invader Zim, go check it out. But yeah, I've enjoyed my time. Yesterday I took off and did nothing but played games all day and watched movies. So I watched literally Red State, Invader Zim, and also played hours upon hours of games yesterday because I've been doing so much work outside. I think I've got to stop or I'm going to kill myself because I started to get depressed about the only thing I felt like I was doing was just working, coming home, and working more.
Yeah.
So
gotta get some time for
yourself. It was good to have a break. But anyway, this is going to lead us into a well-deserved and I think a really well-discussed in terms of throughout the community stake. It's something that I think really needed maybe even a longer form of conversation from us just because of the way of what it was. It's hard to deal with. But the community stake section in regards to last episode, and let me pull it up real quick. What I asked was, do you think that video games lead to violent tendencies in kids or adults, realistically, either wholly or partially? If so, why? If not, then why not? One of the biggest things that I think hit me from a conversation with a friend who I know who suffers from mental illness and takes it pretty seriously, as well as other people on here who know people who suffer from mental illness, I think we got to a much more nuanced conversation than what we really allowed ourselves to dig into in the episode. And the one complaint, and it's not even a complaint, it's almost like the one criticism. I don't even want to know. It's not even that, but it's essentially they pointed out, one of the things that happens by us being people who are not really severely impacted by any form of mental illness ourselves, as well as other people who end up happening to this, is that one of the things that happens is that just like for us, where we feel like people who don't understand, who don't understand video games and don't really have anything to do with them, immediately shirk their responsibility off to video games without much thought or real detail into why they feel that way. What also ends up happening is that sometimes, without enough thought and care into the way that we're wording things, a lot of people end up shirking these things off into mental illness, which is a very broad spectrum of things. Yeah. And what ends up happening is that by nature of whether we intended it to or not, you can sometimes with the way that you can bring these things up and not going into enough detail as I think we probably should have. And I felt that when we were done, but we were kind of done. So it's like, what are you going to do? But it's like we're doing the same thing that people are doing to video games, just to mental illness. But at the same time, hold on.
No, we're not.
I'm making my way there. In terms of by not going into enough details, what we mean, because what ends up happening in this situation is that I know for sure I'm not knowledgeable enough on mental illness across the board, but at the same time, there is an easy answer in your mind of someone who feels the need for whatever reason it was to take someone else's life, definitely massive amounts of people's lives because of this distress that they're in, has to have something wrong with it in their mind, which we say out loud as mental illness. But mental illness also, yeah, I know, I'm getting there.
That's what it is.
Yeah, but what also happens is it doesn't go into enough detail of what caused the mental illness.
It can't,
because what happens,
nobody will ever know.
Well, and it's a case-by-case basis. And that's what I mean is that
for the majority
it's a very nuanced conversation that's really hard to have in the small scope of time that we kind of gave it. And it's also something that's just really across all this right now. It's like everything's kind of touchy.
Where was this at? Where was this at?
What are you talking about?
The criticism.
What do you mean?
Didn't you say we got this as criticism?
Yeah, from one of my friends, actually.
Oh, okay.
And it's somebody, and I get it. Essentially, what it came down to, the criticism was the way we were talking about it could be seen as grating because of the way that we talk about it. I'm trying to even think of the way to word it. But look, there's things I want to bring up in here that I think are important, and we'll get those done real quick, because this was a very, very responded to community stake, the most that we've ever had. So one of them here that I think was really important is Mr. Rob Henry, who has his own podcast, if you want to go check that out. And Rob, I am actually skipping on it right now. You're going to tell me what it is again so I can properly blast you out on the podcast. But he says video games are getting the raw end of the deal. which I agree with. They are the easy scapegoat instead of dealing with the real issues. I feel like the outlook and overall belittlement of mental health is one of two huge factors. So again, that gets into the part of this is a more nuanced conversation. And he goes on to say, having a bad mental health day should be no different than having a cold/flu. You go see a doctor and they help you, but instead it's looked down upon to get mental help, societally, of course. The second factor to me is parenting or the lack thereof, which does go into the point of some mental illnesses are caused by actual things that have happened and trauma that exists over the thing, while some people are born with mental illnesses that are very different in the way that they manifest themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what it gets into, is that by throwing it in as a lump thing, it's just like people who throw in the thing of, technically speaking, I'm sure, like all media, there is somebody who's probably done something because of video games, but that's not it. Why was it because of the video game? Was it also because it was linked to a specific mental illness that they have due to something that happened in their life? And that's why I say, when you just say mental illness without going into it, it does get hard, because there are different forms of mental illness, and it's a very wide umbrella.
Then that makes it sound like you can't say that.
I don't mean that either.
I know, but I'm saying that it sounds like that people are implying that you can't say that without being grading. And my thing is that if you are a person, and this goes for any form of any kind of moral act,
okay,
that could be like any kind of massacre of any kind, any form of tragedy that you can cause yourself. You caused it on purpose. You had a plan. You committed,
which we know in both of these cases was the case. Manifestos was given by one of them. These are all plans.
Because of a chemical imbalance in your brain. You could not rationalize things that you felt. And we're not saying it's depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. We don't know.
Well, and the thing is it could be all of those.
Yeah, it could be all of those.
Are leading in further.
Right, and unless that person admits it, there's no current way that in medicine that you can go back and examine a brain to see what it was doing at the time it died, a dead brain.
Yeah, I don't know about that, to be fair. But also and this is, oddly enough, I haven't even thought about this. I thought both of these people are survived, right? The Dayton shooter and the other shooter are both alive. I know,
but
right?
I'm just saying, like,
that was just curiosity. Yeah, that was curiosity.
I'm pretty sure the one in El
often
Paso
those do end with people shooting themselves, but I think that both of these people survived. So
right, and so my point on all of that is that when they say if anybody's being graded to video games, it's the media, and if anybody's being degrading to mental health, it's the media blaming it on video games for not taking mental health seriously. Right? Because they're finding a scapegoat instead of addressing the problem.
Yeah, but I guess the same thing is when you go into it and with a not, because it's again goes to the question that I'm basing all of this off of is that when you then go, okay, so you have a series of events here, is that some of the media immediately go video games, right? Without any further discussion as to what that actually means, or at least not enough, because video games are a very wide umbrella too, right?
That video games are the cause.
And then you have mental health, which means that, and what happens, I guess this is what I mean. For people who don't know enough about video games and people who don't know enough about mental health, this is essentially the same thing of somebody who doesn't really is involved with those things enough says something, and then it looks like to the outside of people who don't know anything about video games that video games across the board are the problem.
Exactly.
So
I said a scapegoat.
Yes. And then so what happens there when certain people end up saying also mental health, I think what they're getting at, and I actually agree with this the more I think about it, is that when you don't talk enough about why some of that mental health exists, which is the one question that it all rests on to me, is even if it's mental health, which it comes down to eventually, it is a break of mental health.
Yeah.
Is what caused that. And sometimes that can be society. That can be societal problems. That can be parenting problems. That can be literally
problems.
Born that way.
Yeah, relationship problems, friendship problems, anything.
But when you don't give it enough due diligence, and I'm not saying we gave it no due diligence, it's just I think that it was hard across the board, and I don't know enough about it.
I'm just making sure that your friend that said that knows that, like,
no, it's fine. We have a good understanding. We
spoke
about
sure
it.
I know this person too.
You probably do, and I'll tell you who it is. I just don't think it's worth bringing up.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring it up. My own name said, but I know who it is. But my thing is that I don't want somebody to think that for any second that I'm trying to grade mental health at all. It is, as a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. If anything, it enrages me more to know that the media is using that as a scapegoat, because when you use a scapegoat, you were not causing a conflict to be resolved through and through the scapegoat. You are causing the scapegoat to become a target of something, and instead the real problem at hand gets ignored and never fixed. And that's my point. That's what I don't
and I
like
agree.
about it.
And that's all I say of going into that. Also goes into, and it's one of the biggest responses I've seen across the board on this, which I'm actually really proud of. And reading all this stuff, it's really interesting to see people have this, because it goes to show that even when people don't, even when there's people like me who are not as knowledgeable as these things as I wish I would have been, and I wish I would be now. It's just something that I've said it. It's like a double-edged sword of like I'm really happy in one sense, or it's catch-22 rather, where I'm really happy that it's not something I have to deal with, but at the same time I should be more knowledgeable because I do know a lot of people who suffer from these things.
Yeah.
But it goes into the same thing of that is that if you don't, certain people will look at it the same way, and instead of saying you're not dealing with the problems, by just saying mental health, it's like if you make that, and not that we did, but if you do make that the end of the line of it's just mental health, and then there's no other discussion that goes on past that, then you don't get to some of the potential causes for mental health, which is poor parenting, bad childhoods, molestation, beating, trauma, or literally being born with a chemical imbalance that can be
solutions
over time tried to be cured. And again, certain people, one of these people that I know, his medicine that he's had to use for a long time actually stopped working for him, and he had to switch. So when these things happen, it does come down to, I get it. For certain people, when you don't talk about it enough, it just feels like you're doing the same thing. Not completely, and not that we are intending to. And I can't put the motive on the people who were putting this on video games, that they were intending to do something.
When it comes from the media,
what I mean by that is, well, some of it's coming from like politicians and stuff too, right?
Once again,
and then there's also the media, which are they together? Or not?
It's the same.
Either way, I got some other ones I want to touch on here that
are
really good.
Twitter that I really want to touch on.
Go ahead.
Okay, our good buddy Ryan said, "I think parents who allow their children to play violent video games and aren't actively having conversations with them about their lives lead to children having more violent video games,
more violent tendencies."
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not a parent. So what I am going to say is something that cannot really be held with a grain of salt, because obviously I don't have a child. I don't know how I would actually act.
Yeah.
To me,
it's easy to talk. Sometimes it's hard to act. Yeah.
To me, if you are a parent who is letting your young child play stuff like Grand Theft Auto, you're probably not a parent who's going to have conversations with them about their lives in this video game, right? In any case I've ever seen, personally, myself growing up playing Grand Theft Auto, my dad never stopped to tell me the importance, or what I was doing in that video game.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes from like a moral compass in a way. Like, you're not supposed to go run around and drive over people in real life.
But if you're young enough, you don't realize
that young enough, that falls on the parent,
because it's impressionable.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you're going to let your kids do these things, which first of
letting
all,
them play that game.
And I'm not going to say that you can't. It's your child, right? Across the board, if you have a child and you think it's okay for them to play these games, all that comes down to is that the onus comes onto you to make sure that they understand that this is a game and to separate games from reality. And exactly what Ryan talks about ties into the rest of Rob's response, which I really love. And he says, and it's going back to the thing, the second factor to me is parenting or lack thereof. I'm not saying it's always intentional, but we are the first generation raised in front of a TV set. He's a little older than I am, so I think that he probably is right in his age. It's a little different because we're multiple generations down. But he says, we are the first generation raised in front of a TV set with controller in hand. Some parents use a TV to babysit, whether it be to make it easier on the parents or they didn't really have other options, single parents / both parents working multiple jobs, which again goes to show that there's a multitude of issues that can compound into these things. Sometimes it is just bad parents. Sometimes it's parents who don't have options away from it. And that brings in the saying, he said, I feel like maybe there were conversations or interactions that were missed to convey right and wrong and fantasy from reality. And that ties in exactly to what Ryan's talking about.
Yeah. And I do want to make a clarification that, like, just because if you're a parent and you have a child and you let them play Grand Theft Auto, that doesn't inherently make you a bad parent. If you don't go through and talk to them about their lives, that doesn't inherently make you a great parent or a good parent, but you need to talk to your children about the stuff that they're interested in, and you need to take note, because like I just said, my dad did not talk to me about Grand Theft Auto. He did not tell me, like, he sat back and watched me. He never said, don't do that, that's bad. He never said, I was like maybe 12 or 11. Whatever Vice City was, I had it on PS2.
Well, and sometimes it's ignorance, right? You've already mentioned it, is that sometimes it comes down to the thing of, and I think my dad was in that thing as well, because I was playing games like Grand Theft Auto 3 as soon as they came out because my dad was playing them, and it was kind of that follow through. And it's not that I've had these issues either, but I think it actually came down to very much your dad and my dad probably had the same thing of,
well, they taught
and
you a moral compass.
They were technically right? They're like, we've already talked about this. I know that my kid has a moral compass, so he knows that this is not right or wrong.
And
but
that's
there is every chance in the world that I didn't, and maybe he should have talked to me to make sure that I understood that.
Yeah.
But hey, that's the past.
That's the fine line.
Thankfully, it didn't come to anything with me, but it could have.
Yeah, and that's the fine line that what I mean by a bad parent is that you're not teaching your kid, you're a moral compass. You're not teaching them like, hey, you shouldn't run over there and hit someone. It's bad to do so. And then you let that same kid go and just play all these M-rated games nilly-willy, you're just doing a bad job. That kid's going to grow up to be a rotten egg, at least through his childhood, because you're not showing him what to do right and wrong in terms of a moral compass, like in that sense.
And that just comes down to severity, too.
Yeah, I don't have a kid,
and I think everybody, and one of the things I'll bring up next, which I think was really interesting, and thanks, Rob, and Brian, both of those are great. One that I thought was really interesting is comes here because it does show things that I know that I'm guilty of as well, and they come from probably a number of things with my childhood of having a dad that was overly angered all the time and having divorced parents and being with one sometimes and one the other, seeing a bunch of things and never having to process these. But Josh Shoot, Mr. Bomome says, you know what? I'm going to play devil's advocate for the sake of discussion. I will say that it is entirely possible for video games to bring out the violent nature in people. I want you to think about a game that you played in which you got to a part that was insanely difficult and for some reason you could not beat it. I don't know about you guys, but I've had multiple times where I've thrown my controller at the couch. I've seen people that have thrown controllers at their TVs. Is this not considered an act of violence? Let's say you're in that moment and all of a sudden your little brother or sister walks by and makes you mess up after trying to get apart for hours. I don't see where it'd be entirely impossible that you would get mad enough to throw a controller at them. And that comes down to something that there's a long running joke, and then I want to see what you have to say, but you probably know where I'm going with this.
I have the perfect solution for this.
Oh, yes, probably. Or
not solution, but the perfect answer for this.
There's a long running joke about since the podcast has started where I've shared pictures of, and this is not something I've done in because I realized it was an issue, but my chair arm being bent down from me, pounding my fist on it when I'd get mad, and sometimes to a great extent. And it was something that has been a running joke in the sense of, take your, Hakuto was making jokes about it in Liam too, where it's like, you got to be careful with your chair. But it's something that I realize that joking with it, and I'm fine with taking the joke of, that is not a right way to respond to something. Now, there's a levels, right? Is that I shouldn't let myself get that mad. And I kind of catch it as this. Like, I don't think it's right, and it's not something I should be doing, but I'm at least smart enough to know that while I shouldn't have done it, at least what I did it on was an inanimate object that could not hurt anything else. So it's about
a moral compass.
It's me knowing to release the anger that I already know that I shouldn't have, but I have it. Now it's time to deal with it.
And you knew.
And it's, hey, this is the worst thing it can do is hurt me.
Yeah.
And that's good enough for me. Now, even then, I've been able to peel that back, and it's not something I do at all anymore. But I went through a time period where that was that. And these are things that probably stem from seeing the things I saw as a kid. My parents didn't deal with anger in very healthy ways.
You also you're level-headed, and, you have that moral compass of like, I'm going to hit my chair, not my daughter.
Yeah.
And I think that, have you ever nailed wood?
What do you mean?
You ever thrown a nail in wood with a hammer?
Thrown a nail in wood?
Have you ever nailed a nail in wood with a hammer? Have you ever hit your hand?
Yep, and it's terrible.
Yeah, what'd you do to that piece of wood?
Yep.
Beat it with the hammer.
It depends on the wood, but yeah.
You probably beat something with that hammer.
It depends, because if it's wood I'm going to be looking at in the future, I'll actually get mad at myself for that.
Yeah.
But no, you're right, yeah.
And then, so, like, let's say you're a woodworker.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working on your project and that happens, and you may smack that wood with a hammer. Let's say you're a golfer. You throw your club because, hey, you missed your shot. Let's say you're a bowler and you hit a strike, so you throw it with so much force that it may skip a few lanes. Let's say you're a baseball player and you throw your bat at the ground because you missed and you struck out.
No, it's a common thing.
It happens with everything. Once again, though, people are level-headed to stop there. This goes back to the mental instability where if you go and harm someone because of anger within yourself from a video game, if you lost a video game and you go beat someone else up because of it, you go throw something at someone, you have an issue. And obviously, we're not psychiatrists. Yeah, psychiatrists. We're not psychiatrists. We're not here to tell you what's wrong with you. and it's different for every single person. But that's the fine line there, and that's my train of thought. Like, the same goes for everything.
Yeah.
You know, you see people go and they get a car. You see, I get road rage. I pretty much yell, scream.
Yeah.
I don't like. There are things that other people do, though. There are things where people get real close to the car and they act like they're going to swerve into you.
Yep.
Or they'll honk at you 10 seconds straight and then they'll ride you and then just try to like act like they're going to ram into you, or they'll get in front of you then brake check you. I don't do any of that stuff because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Technically, me screaming at somebody through my windshield or whatever, or even beeping my horn when they're going slow, just like a beep beep, not like a beep kind of thing. That could be dangerous too if somebody wants to get out and beat me up because of it. But the thing is, I don't put myself or anybody else in the car in danger because of road rage.
Yeah, fair enough.
There's a fine line there. And I think that it comes down to frustration and how you deal with your frustration. My brain tells me, hey, let's speed up a little bit to get by this person because I don't want to be near them because they just almost swerved into me. Just like that time me, you, and Joe went to Fuji's.
Yes.
Dude almost broke out of a lane and hit me despite the fact I had the right of way. He wasn't paying attention to where he was at, and he pulled out right in front of me. So what did I do? Wait for him to get up in front of me. I swerved into the next lane, or I lane changed or whatever legally with a blinker, and then I zoomed past him and got in front of him way up down the line. I did not want to be near that person in that car because they obviously can't drive. And I yelled at them, and I'm pretty sure I honked real loud too because they were like 10 feet away from me by the time I hit my brakes. But I didn't get out and beat them up. I didn't follow them home. I didn't do none of that. You know, and people, that's where they'll cross the line, and that's where they need to seek mental help to find out what's wrong with them. And nobody's trying to put a blame on mental health as like, oh, well, it's just mental health, ignore it. No, if anything, I am one of the biggest advocators of mental health that I personally know. I actually encourage people, you know, you have anxiety, don't say, you know, oh, I'm fine. No, you have anxiety, you have a problem. You need to deal with it, you know. I have depression. I know how it makes me feel like to deal with it. You know, I played Dark Souls 3 as I've said before. But I have depression. I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not going to say I don't have a mental problem. You know, when you said earlier I have a mental problem, I didn't want to speak up. But like that's the thing, right? Is that yeah, I have depression, I have anxiety. You don't hide that from someone. You tell people you love so they can help you get through it. If you don't have someone you love, you kind of find ways to deal with it. You know, if you are alone and you need someone to talk to, you can go online and try to find somebody to play a game with online. You know, you go deal with it in your own way, but you don't hold it in and you don't ignore what you have. Don't try to mask it because it's going to make you feel worse. Yeah. If you try to deny like, oh, I don't have anxiety, this is just butterflies. No. If you get sick feeling every time you go to work, you have anxiety. If you know, stuff like that, don't mask it. If anything, and me and Brett have talked about it before, I am a big advocate for mental illness and stuff. And I've said point blank to Brett multiple times, you have anxiety, you have severe anxiety, you have mental illness. It's not something to be ashamed of anymore. You can be out and open, you know. We're not back where, you know, you say, you know, I get sick every time, like, or I get a sick feeling in my stomach every time I do something, or I don't like being in big crowds. You know, people way back when, and some people now will tell you, oh, shut up, just do it, whatever. Some people, but now it's more understanding. It's more of a better world to be out when you have these problems.
But there's a lot of room for it to grow to. And I think some of that could come from older generations who are just still in this position of being able to
get those butterflies out of your stomach and go do that.
Yeah, it gets weird, but I mean, at the same time, I think that there's value to both. I think sometimes there's value to understand if you are able to actually take your mind off of it, go and do it, and be okay. Or if you need to understand
when you need to go seek help.
Exactly. At what level do you do which thing? And this is a longer community state because I do think it deserved it. And a lot of these things that we've already talked about have been mirrored through things like Vince was talking about. Howdy, Vince.
Howdy.
But yeah,
you know, get to say howdy. I do. That's me.
Fine. But anyway, these are things that have been mirrored. I'm going to do one more because I think it's an interesting thing that we talked about to an extent.
We'll have to speed through the news,
and then we're going to go through past that. So the last one we're going to do is from one of our patrons, Mr. Rude Cold Sean. He says,
boy Sean.
I think movies' age certification has changed over the years. Movies with a lot of violence, sex, and bad language was always an 18 when I was younger, but now a lot of them a lot of what was deemed 18 is now a 15 unless it has a graphic sex scene. Also, young people have much easier access to violent videos with being online more. There was no way I could have downloaded or watched many videos online before broadband, and it's now all accessible much easier through phones. Technology has definitely had an impact. And I think we're going to end it on that because it comes down to a lot of things of that, yes, technology is probably more of the root cause of this than anything. When these things happen, I think a lot of it does come down to the furor that technology can instill in people, the fact that technology can mislead people and get them to believe things because they're easily manipulated, things like that. People who are very impressionable and go online and find somebody they like and then suck those ideas up and use them on their own. And you just see a lot of things happen when you read these manifestos and things as well, where there's obviously somebody had a big impact on these people, and that technology is one of those things. Sometimes I think technology addiction has a play into some of these things and how people will act violent, and we know that because of the fact that just like any other form of withdrawal, you can see people who have not been on their phones start to act more agitated and more violent and lead more towards violent tendencies because of these things.
An addiction to phone use too.
Exactly. And then I think the last thing is that, like he said, the technology allows these things to change at such a pace. And when you're talking about gaming, it's more than just the technology showing it more real than ever or giving you more and more ways like VR to enact them yourself, but also the fact that it gives you different aspects of online. Now you're doing it with other people. Now you're actually killing people. And when you're killing this other person, they have a name, they have a voice, they have all these things you can go to. Maybe that somehow plays into why some people, when not taught right, can have more of a problem separating reality from, fantasy. And I think all these things come together to show that even though the studies that have been done, and I don't know how often they're done, this is a point of ignorance for me, we know for a fact that after Columbine happened here, there was a lot of studies that went into music, media, games, all those things. And at the time, they were found to not really have any kind of a major impact. And as far as they could tell, they had no impact on violent tendencies and violence. But as these things have gone on, I don't know if these studies have continued to be done every couple of years to keep up with how technology changes these things and understand what's there. But I think if nothing else, this has been a conversation that has taught me that more and more conversation in these types of things is always better, because I think a lot of people brought up things that did not immediately strike me that I agree with a lot.
Yeah.
And then some of them were just more in-depth versions of things that we were trying to say but maybe clumsily landed on. And I appreciate all that.
What I wish is that I wish we had the time to sit here and talk about like all the ins and outs. We're going to miss subjects of a topic every now and then just because with time constraints and stuff like that. And I know the person that pointed this out to you didn't intend to make it sound like we were downplaying anything or anything like that.
And I'll even show you the stuff. It was just, I get where he's coming from.
You don't got to show me everything. But I'm just, if you think that we didn't expound on something well, just know that it's not, we might not be knowledgeable of it. We might be talking about something that we don't have all the answers to. We may be talking about something we just learned about. So, everybody feel free to jump in and correct us or to teach us things that we're talking about, or even just to give your opinion on the subject and how you may think our opinion could differ, or how you may be able to change our opinion because of your differing opinion. It's a podcast. Exactly. It's open for discussion. Everything is.
All right. Well, here we are. We're going to go ahead and go into news, but thank you to everyone who gave such an overwhelming response.
Yes, there are so many responses. Thank you all for that. That's the most we've ever gotten for Community's Take.
Ever.
We got more in Community's Take than we have the last two reader mails combined.
Yes, that was a lot. But I also think it was the perfect subject I understand why people had such a passion to do so, and I'm glad. I mean, that's ultimately what this show about, is giving us more life experience through other people's opinions, but also us sharing the things that we know. And like Saul said, sometimes we're ignorant because we know we're ignorant, but we still try and talk about it the best we can. Sometimes we're ignorant and we don't know we're ignorant. And that's everybody. You just go through it.
Sometimes we can't get everything out because of time constraints.
But here we go. News going. Mr. First thing up is BioWare, the long-running team behind, most recently, Anthem, as I've already talked about on this episode, because I love the game, has had two high-profile departures from the company a matter of days apart. Firstly, Ben Irving, the lead producer on Anthem, has announced his departure just days after the long-delayed Cataclysm event finally saw release, but assuring the game had a bright future. Behind him is Fernando Mello, I don't know how to say that, I'm going to say Milo, lead producer on the upcoming Dragon Age 4, has also announced his departure and leaving with equally high praise for the project. He is leaving, calling it, quote, the definitive Dragon Age experience, end quote. I think that this is interesting because this can be seen in two different ways.
Why would he leave?
Well, it's a little different. You can see why somebody who's done with a project like Anthem can kind of go, and even something like Cataclysm.
Bellow specifically.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I mean, he went into, he didn't go into it as much.
Especially calling it that as he left, because his job's not done, because it's making headlines.
Yeah. So, but of course,
I guess it's good though that you're not trashing the company. You just or the game.
and that gets weird, right? Is how many people are going to view this as HR's talk and just our PR talk, just saying, "Hey, we're just being nice and giving niceties for the company that's employed us for all these years." He wasn't as forthcoming about what he had coming up, whereas Ben Irving, when he was leaving, specifically said that he got a great opportunity at another company to do essentially what he was already doing. So that's understandable. Now that could mean that he sees BioWare being as a sinking ship, and that's what I'm worried about. Is people are going to view this as BioWare being a sinking ship. We already know that BioWare have had issues. We've heard from different, reports from people in Kotaku and other reports, and of course we've seen the products come out with games like Mass Effect Andromeda not being what people would have expected from them, Anthem not launching quite to what people expected either. So of course there's issues there. And I think it's real easy to people jump on the sinking ship narrative of these are people that are trying to get out before the whole thing topples over.
Yeah.
But it very well also could be someone who got a better offer, feels like he's done everything he could, stayed with the company through Cataclysm event coming out, which is this is going to be one of the make or break moments for Anthem as it continues to go through. So he may just feel like his job is done and he's leaving it in good enough hands. The Milo one's a little different. He's not as forthcoming with what he has going on. He just says he's been looking to disconnect for a while and has some other creative ideas he wants to go through. So he might be someone who's wanting to try his mind at creativity outside of gaming. It's hard to say. But either way, I wish them good luck, and I wish the products, of course, they were behind good luck. I love Anthem. I want to see the game do well. I hope that these updates are what people want from it outside of just me. And Dragon Age is a series that I'm very hit or miss on. I liked 1 a lot. 2 had great combat, didn't care for past that. Inquisition just didn't rest with me well. But of course, I hope it does well. So across the board, I'm going to be optimistic on this and say that BioWare, of course, has some problems that need to be fixed. Some of those problems could have come from these people being in the company for 12 years. So as much as I'm not trying to speak negatively of them leaving could be a blessing in disguise. And that's what I'm going to leave it at. Next up, though, despite its age, it appears Diablo 3 is far from dead, with Blizzard recently releasing a post confirming continued support for the foreseeable future. The post goes on to talk about the popularity of themed seasons and that more are on the way, stating that Season 16, the most recent season that actually completed and ended, we're on 17 right now, was just as popular as Season 11, which was back when the Necromancer released. So it's crazy to see Season 16 with no new content release necessarily is doing just as well as back when Necromancer was released. Alongside these, Blizzard asserts that a new set for each class is being made, as well as dozens of new legendary powers to keep the game fresh for current players and draw back lapsed players. The biggest takeaway from this for me is that it's surprising. Not overly surprising, but it does show me that Diablo 4 might be further away than we already thought. We got the backlash whenever Diablo Immortal was announced. Or I'm pretty sure that's what it was called.
Yeah.
And then they were talking that Diablo 4 is still being made, and there's talks and stuff going on.
We'll see.
We don't know to what level. When they said that could have just been the game's just now entering production. And, there's no way to tell on this, but at least it means for now the people that want more Diablo at least have something with Diablo 3. Because I was surprised when I first opened it. When I was reading the article, when I first went to click it, because the title was like Diablo 3 support moving forward. And I was like, oh, they're about to start announcing that support's going to wane down as they close down this chapter of the game. And instead, it was the complete opposite of that. So this is not a bad thing at all. If you've been in the market for a new DualShock 4, Sony has announced 4 new colorways to choose from starting this fall. Electric Purple, Red Camouflage, Titanium Blue, and Rose Gold controllers will be available in September, while the Rose Gold color line will also be extended into the Gold headset lineup later this year in November. So if you want to look fancy, go ahead and do it.
You could do that to your controller too, which is actually pretty dope looking.
What is that?
This guy sprayed on, it's like cement texture or like sidewalk texture spray onto it. And he says it's
like, you can get those in a spray can.
Yeah, he says like really gritty. And it looks, that's kind of like a spray.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it's like something you can't really mess up. I'm actually kind of disappointed.
Because it's almost going to be more unique. Even if you do mess up, it's just going to give your controller a different color in a weird spot or a different texture.
Yeah, it's stone colored and texturized spray paint. So it's really cool looking. I'm really disappointed at Sony and their lack of really nice controllers.
I gotta give them this. I'm proud of them for announcing this is like over 25 colors now.
This is all ugly controllers.
I don't care for them colors. Either. Yeah, but I will say this: these 4 there's a common thread that you can see in the design of each. It's like they're all going through a color line. So they've done this before, where they do waves of controllers that all the designs make sense within the context of all of them releasing at the same time, and there'll be some time. and then they'll release a new wave.
And
this wave makes sense.
Teal and gray controller.
I just don't care for it at all.
Yeah, make a teal and gray controller. Xbox did it right. Do it, Sony.
Well, either way, I think I would like to see something that we always talk about things that we'd like to, we talk about things that we'd like from the competition that we'd like to see Sony copy or vice versa, that we think that Sony's doing better. This is one of the clear areas where I really think Sony's missing a lot by not offering a more deep a more deep customization version for DualShock 4, like the Xbox Controller Labs or whatever it's called, the Xbox ID Labs.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea, and of course they charge more for the controllers, so when you make them the way that you want them to look, that you immediately see them.
And I'm not a huge fan of Gears, but
but it's a good looking console,
dude. And the controller, and
they always do a good job, man.
Yeah,
they really do. And the system, but that's what it comes down to, is that if you're not going to come out with things on your own that are a little bit more fancy and involved for people to really get into,
get like a good third party that you license with to do it.
I don't even say that. I think that Sony's in a position where they can obviously afford to just let people build their own controllers for a price.
Yeah,
you can do it on Scuff. Why can't I do it on Sony? And that's one of those weird things where I think Sony's missing out on profit that could be made by letting people design their own controllers for $100 and then send them to them. I'd pay $30 extra to have a controller that's exactly how I wanted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway,
there's one we can lead into with the main topic, just a couple down.
Yeah, well, there's a couple we can lead in.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. I've got lost. Oh, PSVR continues to get great software support with Witching Tower VR coming to the system this fall. The game sees players take on the role of Anna, a prisoner in the tower who discovers she has the power to control the dead in this full-blown VR action-adventure title. The game actually looks pretty good. It's one of those interesting things where instead of going with a crazy big world, instead it's a full-fledged game that moves through levels and segments. But a lot of the stuff I really liked. So it was small stuff like being able to choose how you want to use your powers. If you want to like summon a sword, summon a bow, or if you wanted to literally take control of dead enemies and have them fight the other things. I thought that was a great idea. There's smaller things where if you want to go through, you can actually sit there and take ingredients and put them in a bowl and pestle and mortar them out.
Like the move controller.
It's a great idea, and I like that this is not. We're so far into the PSVR now that I'm glad. One of the biggest things they wanted to say on here is that this is not an experience. This is not some short 1 hour experience. This is a full game, and this is the kind of stuff I want to get into. Yeah. One of the great full games for PS Move, despite the fact that it didn't get nearly as long as support as it probably could have done if Sony really wanted to. One of the best games was a game called Sorcery, and I love the game. It was the best use of the Move controllers I've ever seen.
That's a weird way to say Office Simulator.
But this was, of course, on the PS3 in a very different setup. But this is going towards that idea of how do you take ideas of games that are going to fit more with this type of technology and do them in ways that have unique things that you couldn't otherwise get. And I think this is the best way to do it. So this is cool. If you have any kind of idea, if you want to see this more in action, you can go check out. There's screenshots right now, and the game is apparently close to being done. So they'll probably be putting out a full-on trailer here soon. But if that sounds interesting to you at all, go check it out. While we're on the topic of VR, Firewall 0 Hours new season of content started this week, featuring new equipment such as instant smoke and motion sensors, 2 new maps, 2 new contractors, new weapons, and more. I'm proud to see this game. One of the main reasons I constantly try and cover it is that it's a game that I really do enjoy and I love, but it's also, to me, it's showing that it is going to be VR's first Rainbow Six and Call of Duty, this more involved, higher quality, something that constantly gets supported with seasons and stuff. And so I really want to say more about Rainbow. This is like VR's Rainbow, and I've said that not only from the fact that it's obviously inspired by Rainbow, but it's the fact that I think it's done the smart thing of looking at VR as a platform that can also do some of these games as a service ideas, and this is all free. You can get all of this just within the game the way you want, or you can pay $10 and unlock these things early, and I think that's an awesome idea. So have you played this at all yet?
Nope.
Yeah, one of these days, if you just have kind of some time to go, I think that you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to play it, but I just time.
But yeah, well, that, and of course, it's not. You wouldn't be playing it on your own.
Okay, so let me just break away from PlayStation real quick. Just ask a quick question since it's on my mind. Corey's coming in 2 weeks from now, or no, a week.
1 week from now.
Yeah, next weekend.
Yeah, he's coming in Friday, as far as I've been.
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay, so we could probably chill Friday if you don't have plans.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. We do it then.
Cool.
So kind of on PlayStation topic. We're making plans to play Firewall.
There we go.
I'm going to get them stretched real quick though.
Going back to PlayStation, even though we were already on it. PlayStation's Predator Hunting Ground. Make sure I'm on the right thing. The game, okay, actually this goes into being able to segue into the main topic. One of the things that we were looking through at with all the news going on this week and kind of slow is we have Gamescom coming up, so next week is going to be a major, Saul just whispered saucily into my ear.
Yeah, you heard me, didn't you?
I did not hear what you said. Final Weapon. Oh yeah, hey, if you want to go check out the news, go to Final Weapon.
Jesus Christ. Ask yourself out loud what I just said.
Hey, either way, I'm glad Saul said something about it. I've been saying that I want to start doing it to cap the news off with. But yeah, if you want anything outside of PlayStation, if you want PlayStation news, you can get it from there. But if you also want to go across all the other people, if you want to look at Switch news, Xbox news, go over to finalweapon.net. You can find all the cool stuff over there and support some good guys and their hard work.
Yes, sir.
But here we are moving finally into the main topic that Saul so graciously landed on. But I think it's a good topic.
Yeah, me too.
The first thing we're going to do to kind of segue ourselves into it is the fact that Gamescom is, of course, happening. And one of the things that we know for sure is happening.
I was going to say, I wouldn't go into all of this.
We can kind of just talk about it.
It's going to, by the time they watch the episode, though. I'm talking about the news.
I'm with you.
Of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
what's going on in here?
Yeah.
Because I just thought of that is that by the time this comes out, Gamescom will be 1 hour away.
Yes.
And I'm sure that there are people who are already going to hear about this stuff by the time they watch the episode.
Yeah. So one of the things I guess we'll say is that what we're going to do is essentially all the stuff that we have compiled of information that we have about it, as well as other stuff I think Saul has got pulled up, is we're going to sit there and look.
I don't have nothing pulled up.
Okay, well, we know for the most part about what's going to happen at Gamescom. I can pull up
Jeff's tweet.
Yeah, you can. But across the board, we know for the most part what's going to happen at Gamescom. And we know some of its new things. We know that THQ Nordic have talked about 3 unannounced games that, of course, by the time that you watch this, we'll probably know a little bit more about. But all this is going on with the event that they have going on there, which is Opening Night Live, which is hosted by Jeff Keighley of the Game Awards.
You know, I just now realized
Keighley?
last
I don't know how you say his name.
Keighley.
I thought it was Keighley, but I could
Keighley. I used to thought it was Jeff Knightley for some reason. Like, I guess just I never paid attention to his name. I just glanced.
Brother of Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley. Yeah, like it made sense. Also, what all is this the man in charge of now? The Game Awards and Gamescom?
Well, see, what I noticed is that if you remember, too, he's had some pre-shows that were E3, too. He had an E3 pre-show. Essentially, he's just gotten himself to be synonymous
he's a fantastic dude.
Pre-shows and stuff.
I love his personality. He's one of my favorite hostess of things.
I'm okay with him. I don't just love him or hate him, but
I love him.
He's doing exactly. He's the Ryan Seacrest of gaming. He's essentially just meant to be the guy who doesn't do a whole lot. He just kind of puts a good positive attitude out there.
The great thing about him is he has good
in.
partnerships with people. Like him and Kojima like are bestest of friends.
This is what I'll say. Very similar to how I feel about Ryan Seacrest sometimes is how I feel about Jeff Keighley. Sometimes I feel like he's just putting on the face and being positive about something that he really doesn't care that much about, or maybe he
has to. It's his job.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean is that it's a hard job to do where some people are not going to be like, well, sometimes he's fake. And it's just part of it. But overall, I deal with him. He's fine. I like him enough. And I think he does a good job at what he's meant to do. But anyway, one of the things we know for sure, and I think this is something that I'm actually curious to see if you're excited about or not, Saul, is that one of the biggest things that came out of this, and it's not surprising for anybody who's followed Game Awards or any of this stuff, is that Jeff Keighley, whatever it is, and Hideo Kojima have got kind of like a bromance joke thing going on.
Yeah.
And Kojima will be at this Opening Night Live and is going to be showing off new previews for Death Stranding. So for you, Saul, because the game is still such a mystery, are you okay with seeing more of it like this? Because of the fact that I'm even pretty sure that even with what they're showing, the game is still going to feel so mysterious.
I have
or do you want to avoid it?
Well, I have a theory on what it's going to be, and I'm fine with it because it's just going to be another character reveal.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be another very, I want to say, very mysterious character reveal is what it's going to be. And so therefore we're not really gonna find anything else out about it.
Well, we got a lot of character reveals in that Twitch stream that revealed the date.
Yeah.
So it's kind of. So what do you think it'll be? Like a reveal or a more
really
in depth?
A reveal, yeah, a more in depth look at the characters, and I'm somewhat fine with that for the most part.
Well, because we've kind of seen that already, right? So I'm assuming that you're doing this from the history will repeat itself. So like we saw one of the first things they did, first trailer, they talked about, okay, it's like, well, we know it's a game, we know it's Hideo Kojima. First trailer shows Norman Reedus coming back. Right? It's like, and then we see Norman Reedus on stage.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Then what we see is the next trailer, we see Mads Mikkelsen's character.
Yeah.
Then we see Mads Mikkelsen. And it's like, okay, what they're doing is giving new bits of information about the game while also going more into depth about who this character is and what they may play a part in.
I think that's what this one will be. I think it's going to follow the footsteps, and maybe we'll go back more so into Troy Baker's character, which I'm fine with because I know Kojima, being Kojima, is not going to give you too much. He'll never give you too much per
of
se.
anything, and because we've seen that.
He'll give you too little, if anything.
The long run, and if he gives you too much information, be prepared for a ruse cruise.
Yeah,
it's
it's man. Just watch The Boys. That's all I gotta say.
I really need to watch it.
That's
I
because
haven't had time yet.
That made me think of that. But yeah, like you, that's what I think is gonna happen. I think that we're gonna get a lead on to another character's motivations and maybe even a brand new character reveal. I don't really know, but that is my most excited thing here. There is something else in here that I am somewhat more excited for as well, which is the Destiny 2 Shadowkeep reveal. We've already seen it. We've seen as this week has gone by, Bungie has released stuff called director's cuts, and it's part 1, 2, and 3, and they're going about addressing stuff that's going on in the game and how it's changing for Shadowkeep and how things are going to work. And I'm really kind of curious as to see what else we're going to get.
What's weird about this is that by nature of what Destiny 2 is doing, and I actually don't know if Destiny 2 is going to be at Gamescom at all. That was just the news being slightly out of order just because of the way I typed it up. But
no, it's here.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's at Gamescom.
Good. Well, either way,
One
of the things that gets weird about Shadowkeep is that Shadowkeep almost feels like more of an actual sequel than Destiny 2 did to Destiny 1. But at the same time, not, because most of what Shadowkeep is doing is bringing things back from Destiny 1 that people really wanted, while also expanding on some new areas, you know? So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm excited to see Destiny 2 more of it, but we've seen it all week. We've got a really long, in-depth stream that introduced transmogrification, which, if you don't know what that is...
That's right! Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just essentially, if you don't know what transmogging is, as it's shortened for, it's essentially where you keep one item and you keep its stats, but then you can choose the cosmetic look of it based off other stuff. Now, right now, we know that it's going to be limited to Eververse items and seasonal gear, such as like the Dawning event gear and like the most recent, the Solstice event gear.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. There's talks about how mods have been reworked, new items that are going to be required to fully masterwork armor pieces. There's a whole lot more stuff going on in Shadowkeep. That was one of the big things we saw in the Armor 2.0 stream. But against all it goes to show is that Destiny, at least separate from Activision, they're trying to prove that they have a lot of stuff going on. Now, whether you like it or not, this is a big change to the game.
Yeah.
And it just feels almost to me, I can't remember a time in Destiny 1. I feel like, okay, well, we constantly call it the Forsaken moment that matches in with like the Taken King moment, where the game changed in a lot of ways, but also in a way that felt more like this is the defining of what Destiny 1 will be remembered as. And you know that because most people, when they talk about Destiny 1, have a lot of fond memories around the whole Taken King side.
Yeah, that's the best.
And I feel like
Destiny
as
1.
you continue to go through Destiny 2, all of the scuttlebutt, as we're going to call it, all of the talk came back to Destiny 2 in a real way, and people talking about it in a positive way, including me, as a lapsed player who came back when Forsaken hit. So I feel like we've already had that moment to where Forsaken is going to be really what defined Destiny 2 up until now, and just like Taken King was what defined Destiny 1, but Shadowkeep may dethrone that because it's doing so much that it almost feels like, in a weird way, Destiny 3. Now, whether or not that's up to them and that's what their intention was, or if this is just them trying to put all the things in that they wanted to do that Activision was choking off, those are things we'll probably never know, but it's interesting to see. So I'm glad it's going to be there. If you haven't looked too much on Shadowkeep, but you've ever liked Destiny, I would say now's the time to look in. If you didn't care for Destiny 2, a lot of what Shadowkeep's doing is changing things back to Destiny 1. You're getting more stats involved. All the stats that left in Destiny 2, they pared down, are going to be reintroduced in. They're doing things like transmogging and changing the way the armor is going to work entirely. You have essentially, with the way that they're doing some of the mods, and so you could probably, I watched.
I haven't
sectionally.
watched. No, I haven't.
You didn't watch it?
I'm really kind of out of the loop on it because once again, the Destiny burnout is kind of real.
Yeah. So even looking at the content,
even just looking at the I kind of want to go in and either a week before Shadowkeep comes out, kind of go through and watch all these and kind of learn what's going on
to build your hype right before release.
Or I just want to go into it blind.
I gotcha. Well, you know what? There's a couple of things that we didn't get to, but I don't care. We're already here. And the biggest thing is, what is From Software doing? And I guess for you, is it, are we going to get a leak?
No, well, Elden Ring leak.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They keep saying behind closed doors, but both Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro had gameplay reveals at Gamescom in 2018 and 2016. 15?
I thought Sekiro got its gameplay reveal at E3. I'm actually fairly positive it did.
No, I don't think so.
But I could be wrong. I mean, or the Game Awards, rather. Sorry.
No, the Game Awards was the
initial teaser.
Yeah, the one where it showed the arm clicking.
You're right.
And then Gamescom was the very first world reveal of gameplay last year. And then Microsoft got it at, well, you might be right.
Shadows Die Twice official gameplay, Gamescom 2018.
Okay. Well, then maybe what it was that Microsoft got the trailer. That's right. Okay, so
but we didn't get gameplay.
Right, yeah. So we got the trailer
we got teaser trailer
Sekiro at E3, but then we got the gameplay at Gamescom.
Yeah.
So we may get to see what Elden Ring is. That's what I'm really excited for, but no hopes because it's supposedly behind closed doors, which would be the first year they've ever done it, which I don't know if I trust. That might be a surprise thing that we may see.
One thing that I think me and you are a little different on, but I am curious to see, I'm assuming, and this is only going to be covered here because it's going to be, by the time you watch this, if you didn't know, you're going to know. Did you see the Need for Speed Heat reveal?
What was the thing that cop shouted out that was so terrible?
Oh, dude, I don't remember.
Yo, dude, there's like a specific part of that trailer, like where a cop says something, like stop and get down, or he yells it. Dude, it is the worst voice acting I think I've ever heard. Worse than Titus's. Yes, Titus, not Titus. Worse than his laugh. I'm telling you, dude, no game in 2019 should have that. I would not be surprised if that gets changed.
To be dead honest with you, there's that, but I'm also not.
The game comes
out in November.
It looks good, but I'm
it comes out November 8th. Now, here's what's weird. All we got was a trailer. So what the trailer introduced for us, in case you didn't know, but you probably see it by now, is we have a fictitious city like they always do. Palm City is what it is. It seems like it's Florida. Based around Florida. The setup is going to be a little different to where during the day you're actually doing sanctioned real races that you get from money and upgrades. That's it. What you're going to do there is that money to upgrade your cars and buy new cars. And then when nighttime rolls around, at night you're going to be underground street racing, and that's when cops are going to be involved. And then if they catch you, then of course you get busted. And it seems like more so than ever, they're trying to chase that beloved cop chase days that were prominent in Most Wanted and Carbon. They talked about that since the reboot they hit in 2015. And I don't think it's terrible. It's obviously a great idea, and they've had mixed success across the board. And I hope if this is the third time's a charm with they're trying these different things and sticking, that this is what we're going to get. I'm excited to see more of it because one of the things I want the gameplay to confirm for me is that some of the actually good parts of Payback are going to stay in. So you didn't play Payback at all, right?
No.
Did you play the Need for Speed 2015 reboot? Or did you even care? It was the one that brought in live action, and it was kind of like, I don't know how to even describe it. It was like as close as you were going to get to like the idea of Carbon and Underground 3 having a baby, because Underground didn't have live action stuff necessarily.
Right.
But Carbon and Most Wanted did. That was stylized
I don't like live action stuff. But then again, this is CGI for what that part, dude, is terrible.
Yeah.
It sounds like he sounds like he's in a Skillet song. The way he says, I said right now.
To me, dude, if I'm being honest, that sounds like a cop to me. Cops speak in weird ways because
that was rhythmatic. That sounds like Dad Gent.
I get knocked down.
There you go. Man, I wish I was creative and I could edit a video, because I sure would edit that into a video. I mean, I can edit videos, but with my own effects.
One of the biggest things, and I think that you'd agree, and I think I talked to you about it, in Payback that was annoying, was that you had to upgrade. Because of the way they introduced loot boxes into the game, loot boxes permeated all the way through to the upgrade system. So what would happen is when you go to the upgrade system, you had to go to a store and buy these cards that would roll and spin and all these different crap, and you'd get free ones at the end of races and stuff. But it looks like one of the things that they said, and this is something we've seen across the board, is that the game will never have loot boxes ever. And this has been a recurring thing at EA games at this point. We saw it with Anthem. They said no loot boxes, and we saw it with Battlefield 5, no loot boxes. Now we're seeing it here with Need for Speed. I don't know if this is EA trying to course correct, and because of that, I don't know if we're going to eventually end up seeing them anyway. We heard Respawn say that they never really do loot boxes in the same way, but then we saw recently this new thing.
Yeah, that's a big thing with Apex Legends going on right now. Apex is getting the heat.
Anyway, couldn't Need for Speed heat. Anyway,
that was really unintentional.
But I'm hoping that what this means is that because of the fact that they're moving away from loot boxes, that means we go back to a traditional upgrade system where you win, you see the money, you know what part you're getting, you upgrade it. None of this random spinning and hoping the store has stuff that you need in. You go to a store, they've got the upgrades, and it goes to a traditional upgrade tier. I really like Need for Speed. Not all of them. They've been to mixed success. The last two have had great parts. I think that the way they did chasing in the last game, though it wasn't cops, it was like mobster people that were involved. I don't know how to describe it. But the takedown system was great. And I hope that they keep that in. and mix it somewhat with how the cops did work in the 2015 reboot, but to a larger scale, and kind of bring back the golden days of what I think Carbon did really well, and of course Most Wanted did as well. I consider Carbon and Most Wanted to be like the same breadth of thought, because it's really what they are. They were a year apart from each other and sequels to each other.
So Heat is your most anticipated reveal, I guess, or that's what you're looking forward to the most?
It gets weird where it comes down to what it is. I'm looking forward to it, maybe not the most, but a lot, because of the fact that I think the whole thing about Ghost Games, they came into Rivals, but Rivals was a cross-gen game, and it was kind of their first tell, so people kind of just didn't worry about it. But now that they're doing this reboot thing, one of the ththings that's going to happen with reboots is that you're going to have great ideas, and sometimes you're going to have poor ideas. Some of the poor ideas have permeated through, but you've still had okay games throughout the poor. I enjoyed the 2015 game heavily.
That was one that used cards, right? Like
that wasn't the card one. That was Payback. That was 2017's one. That was the second one. So it's like, for all the step forwards they did with the 2015 version, 2017 version took some steps back, but also added some great things. So what I'm hoping is that for a lot of people, I feel like this is the third time's a charm, or I'm done with them moment. And since Ghost Games is now at the head of this, they really need to show well here, not only for me because I want to get the game, because racing games are just not nearly as often as they used to be.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they did the one thing that everyone wanted. When Criterion was doing it, they took away customization completely. All three of these games have made sure that car customization is front and center. There's a lot of goodwill instilled in them, but this is their moment to capitalize and show that, hey, even if you think that Florida's kind of weird and the setting may be a little weird, across the board, this is the game you've always wanted. We're going to have great car customization, good racing, a cool map, where even if you don't care for the idea, it's going to be a fun thing to race on, and we're going to introduce cop car chases in the way that you remember them, even better, for the first time, realistically. And this is what they could do.
So did either one of those previous two games make you... Did they have anything involving loot boxes in them that was prominent, or was
the second one was? Yeah, so Payback is the thing that loot boxes is what permeated down into the upgrade system with cars.
That's what I thought.
And it was all based around loot boxes, because you could buy more of those cards and spin through these things. But it was the only time I've ever played a racing game where the rest of the game was really fun, and the story
car customization was the worst part of.
Well, the car customization itself was fine. It was only the performance.
Yeah.
So it was only on, like, if you're trying to upgrade your your NOS.
Cars use RAM now?
Yeah, cars use RAM. Well, I guess the Teslas. But anyway, it was like if you were trying to make your car faster for whatever reason, if you wanted to change out your intake or something like that, it was all card-based. Now, what got weird about it is it kind of introduced weird gamey things that you wouldn't expect to see. Oh, was Mr. Narwhal not even in frame?
Not at all.
No, well, there he goes, Mr. Narwhal. I got him for $8, and I love him. But yeah, it's Need for Speed has got a lot that it can really prove. What was weird about that is, like, very similar to what Anthem's doing right now, and adding a really gamified thing in, where when you're going through the Cataclysm, you get a score that you can build up on, which is actually a great idea. One of the cool things about this idea for the card system, as dumb as it was that all the parts had different manufacturers that made them, and if you had your whole car decked out with multiples of them, you'd get benefits from having stacks. Kind of like when you're in an RPG, and if you have one set of armor and where the armor all is in the same set, then you get a set bonus.
So is that a mechanic to make you want to buy more performance
I don't
parts?
know why it was in there, but at least it gave there a reason.
Not knowing anything about the game, that tells me, like, if I buy more performance parts, I'm more likely to have a better stack boost.
Essentially, it's a way for you to burn through money. Now, whether you want to do that by actually racing and earning money, it wasn't bad. Unlike my experience that I had with, it was just dumb. That's what it felt like to me. Because unlike my experience that I had with, like, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where I felt
I thought
like...
you were going to say Shadow of War.
No, I actually didn't have any problems with that game either.
You keep saying that, but they changed it after you got done with it. They made it work like less.
Well, maybe they did.
Complaints.
Maybe they did. I don't know.
I actually might go back and play that game now, because
that's all I'm
there
saying.
were so many complaints of it being grindy at the end game that they went back and at least they changed
but that
it.
was also just for the true ending. And I think any game, if they want to make it grindy for the true ending, that's up to you.
Don't put true ending in quotations if it's the canon ending.
Well, that's kind of like if you wanted to play Arkham Knight. Technically, you had to do a bunch of crazy, grindy stuff to get to the ending.
Yeah, that was dumb too.
Yeah, but it's something that I see in the games often
and
enough that I'm okay with it.
I borrowed Arkham Knight at launch.
Yeah, but my point being is that I don't really consider that to be a big problem. But here, it didn't feel like it was an issue like it was in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where I felt like the game was purposely not giving me enough experience so that I would buy the experience boost. Instead, it was like, well, if I want to do races, I get money pretty fast, and I can buy these as much as I want to. It's just because of the random nature of what you're going to land on when you go to buy something, it was kind of annoying. So, And you had to wait for the store to replenish stock if you wanted to try and get something different. Or you could take cards that you dismantled and spin them to try and get a random one of your own. It was a weird setup, but I am excited for Need for Speed as someone who really loves racing games. And definitely, I do like Gran Turismo and I do like the sim stuff. And I really wish I had a steering wheel setup where I'd play that more often and I had more time. One of the things I like about these arcadey racing games is you can hop in and out and not feel like you're having to get in this zone to play it. And that's the problem I have with Gran Turismo is I always feel like I have to get in a zone that I seldom have time for anymore. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
But past that for you, I mean, is there anything that's big that you see on the list that comes out?
Not really. With the nature of these events, what I'm always kind of excited to do or see is any potential surprises we get. That's more like it's the same with E3. We always have an inkling of a thought of what we'll see at E3 and what we kind of know in the back of our minds we'll see. But at the same time, it's the surprises you get, you know. That's what I'm really excited about is maybe Elden Ring is a surprise, but I'm not going overboard with thinking that to get my hopes up. But yeah, like realistically, Death Stranding, maybe what they've showed in Director's Cut of Shadowkeep is more digestible in like a 6-minute video or whatever they may do.
Mm-hmm.
Because all these videos, I think, have been like 30 minutes long. So like it's an hour and a half worth of stuff on Shadowkeep they've released.
Yeah.
And feeling kind of burnt out about it. You know, it's one of those things of like, I don't want to watch an hour and a half of something I'm kind of burnt out about, but 6 minutes is more digestible for sure.
And still gets your point across.
Yeah, and still gets your point across and still lets me know what's going on. But other than that, like they say Google Stadia is there. I'm kind of curious about if that will be a stage thing because I'm curious as to see what it will do on that Wi-Fi. We already saw it perform pretty poorly on Google's Wi-Fi. This isn't...
For whatever was going on?
Yeah. It's Assassin's Creed.
Well, what I mean is, like, we don't understand completely the internet connection situation there.
Well, yeah.
The easy excuse is that multiple people were connected to that Wi-Fi, but then why did you not have isolated Wi-Fi for something that you're trying to show off?
Dedicated network for that. But so, like, I'm curious as to see if that's even better, or maybe if they do bring dedicated network or something. It's not hard, Google. Like, you could technically bring a hotspot with you, couldn't you? And it's, okay, here's the thing.
Well, hotspot gets weird because it's based around cell signal, and cell signal can get messed up when you have a ton of people in a room. Now you can ask the people in the room to put all their devices on airplane mode. Like
nobody's going to do that.
You know the infamous time where whenever he was still alive, of course.
Steve Jobs
told everybody to turn their phones off or turn their Wi-Fi off on their phone or something so he could show
something messed up. And
it was FaceTime, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, it was FaceTime, and it messed up because everybody was connected to it in that area. And then he told everybody to turn it off, and it worked.
What was funny is that everybody thought it was a joke at first. He was like, "I'm serious."
Yeah, and it actually worked.
But they could have done that, but I'm assuming they probably didn't because what you'd really
I want to see a speed test done. I want them to use both Google and then what is it, Ookla or whatever it's called, like the actual speedtest.net website. I want to see them use those too. Show me that they're running at 100 megabits per second or something.
Well, here's the weirder thing: is that speed test is one thing, but speed test doesn't completely go into how much bandwidth you have.
Right, but it's still what they said was 100 megabits down, and I'm getting 4K 60 frames. I don't believe that. Actually, I think they said like 30 down, and I'm getting that.
Well, perfect tie into that, right, is PlayStation Now. PlayStation Now says that you can get a playable signal, and that's what they consider their bare minimum is 5 megabytes per second. Dude, no.
On 5 megabits a second, I could not play Grand Theft Auto Online with friends and join their party at the same time.
It does not work.
If I did one of the other, I was booted off the internet.
Yeah. See, now, me on what actually gets to my PlayStation through Wi-Fi, since I've changed it from a hardwire, I got like 170 megs.
Through Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
And that's pretty good.
I think I get 250 wired.
Yeah, wired I get 250.
Yeah, I get the full max speed I think we have.
But through Wi-Fi, it's not bad. And PlayStation Now works perfectly for me. But you're asking a lot for people to all have this set up, because what I'm learning more and more of is I see people definitely on Twitter and Reddit and Facebook
wireless is the thing to go, and it has been for like the past 5 years, 10 years. It's just enthusiasts who know that, like, or who not only do they know, but they are the ones that will go hardwired.
Yeah, and I prefer hardwired. It's just I can't have hardwire in two different places in this house with the way that this.
I don't think my laptop has
is set up.
Ethernet. No, it doesn't.
No, mine doesn't either. Too slim.
Have you seen the Ethernet that is they have them where it pops out and then expands? It's
you've told me about it before.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's like a port that pops out, and so if you needed it, you could. But anyway, my point being is that I see people in Facebook groups all the time who have internet that's 4 megabytes per second, more megabits, whatever it was, and are looking and think like, is this speed good? And I'm like, that it goes to show me that they don't even know that this is poor speeds.
Yeah, if you get 4 down.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I don't think, interestingly enough, I don't know if you saw, Phil Spencer recently said that he doesn't think that Google Stadia is going to have any kind of major effect on consoles.
Of course it's not.
And don't get me wrong, I thought so too, but it's interesting that he would say that when they have their own cloud streaming service coming out. You think he'd want to be a little more like, well,
I don't think
it'll be a good performer, but it's not going to have a major effect on consoles.
I don't think it's going to sell well either. But yeah, dude, look at that. It looks like a little transformer popping out the PC.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Other stuff that I am a little excited for all comes down to weird THQ Nordic games, and it's funny. I already was having this thought, and then of course I hop on Twitter and I see Ryan post it, and he says, at this point you have to believe that THQ Nordic is just like a cover up for money laundering for like a big drug scheme or something.
And how many games they have in development?
So many games in development.
And
they have games that you don't feel like. And now, don't get me wrong, some of these games have got huge fan bases, some of them don't. But it's like we hear one of the things that we saw was that THQ Nordic confirmed that there is a new. It's not going to be at Gamescom, but there is a new Saints Row game in development at. Volition or whatever the name of the developer is.
I don't believe that for 1 second. Maybe they have like 2 lines of code written so they can legally say it's being developed.
Well, either way, they've already said that.
How long has it been since the last one?
On.
Since Saints Row 4? Like 4 years?
2013. Because it was still THQ. It wasn't THQ Nordic, so it was before THQ went under.
Wow. 6 years.
And it was a cross-gen game. So yeah, it was before PlayStation hit the market, PS4 hit the market technically.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Saints Row because was it Saints Row 3 that was on PS3 that they had free 1 month for PlayStation Plus? Yes. And I downloaded it, and then I moved into my new apartments. And of course, since we moved, and I was in this is back when I lived at the Link, so obviously my old apartments. Back when I moved, moving is very stressful, and I was very anxious to the point where like I was sweating a lot. Like I'd get like flash heat or whatever it's called, flop sweats, and like I couldn't sleep. So like I would stay up all night playing Saints Row to get my mind off of my anxiety. So like it's weird, but it was like.
And 3 was the last time where 3 introduced some crazy stuff into the series.
Yeah, but it was still
grounded.
Yeah.
And then 4 came and everybody's superheroes and it's happening inside of a dream.
But it was still super fun to play. Yeah. And like I always have a soft spot for 3 in my heart because of that. It helps me through a very anxious phase of my own place for the first time ever.
But I'm not surprised. Volition has been teasing over and over again that they're doing something, and this falls in direct line with that.
Pretty much,
but
yeah.
They have a lot of stuff going on. So one of the things I'm really wanting to see is Biomutant. I want to get...
That's probably not going to be there.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things they recently came out and showed was, and we were talking about it on the Discord with Liam, is
they're ridiculous $400 collector's
editions. There's multiple for multiple games, but
I'm talking
specifically
about the $400
about Biomutant.
Yeah.
So $400 Biomutant, they essentially came out and revealed the Atomic Edition, which is a $400 collector's edition that's going to have a huge diorama of the player character fighting one of the game's giant beasts, as well as some other stuff, steelbook and some fabric art and stuff like that. But outside of the fact that they have a weird literal addiction to putting out $400 because the Darksiders Genesis collector's edition that comes with the board game, $400. THQ Nordic also talked about the Crypto 137 edition for their Destroy All Humans reboot / remake, whatever you want to call that, and it's coming out. It's $400. It comes with a statue of Crypto, which is fine, but then it comes with a Crypto backpack. They're all weird.
It's the $400 one. Like I gotta say this: who in the world collects the little miniature things that comes with collector's editions and aren't buying it just for the statue? Like that's
there are people that do it, but it's few. Or if they're going to be, I want them to be small stuff like God of War has.
Yeah, I've never met someone. Destiny 2 is a perfect example. I got the whatever the edition they switched the names on it. I got the $80 one. I did not get the backpack and the speaker. And it came with a steelbook, which was really dope. And it came with the art book, which was really dope. But it came with chess pieces, and it wasn't a full chess set.
Yeah.
Why? Why does this come with a mouse pad and a cloth poster? The mouse pad can be a cloth poster. The cloth poster can be the mouse pad. Why do I need both?
It's a good point. Now here's what's weird about that, right?
It's like you're adding things to inflate the price because that statue's not worth $400.
Exactly. Well, no, now this one's. I'm not saying it's worth $400, but it is big.
It's
now,
nice. Don't get me wrong. Still not nowhere
here's
near
the difference.
$400.
I paid $400 for the Darksiders one.
You got 6 statues.
I got 4 statues.
Same difference. The same amount.
4 very big statues.
4 and 6 is the same.
Yeah, but that one feels more in line of like I understand what I'm getting.
That thing was also like 45 pounds.
Yeah. But then you get to the thing of like the Darksiders Genesis one that comes with an entire. Well, that one was $400.
$400, okay.
Yeah, and then the Darksiders Genesis $400 set. It comes with an entire exclusive to that edition. It will never be sold again. Board game that has miniatures and cards and a board and like a thing that you move around.
That's still not worth it for me. Does it come with statues?
Yeah.
Okay, so does it come with all 4 statues?
No, it comes with a statue of.
So it comes with one statue.
I might be
in a board
forgetting
game?
wrong, but yes, it comes with the game.
See, how does this make sense? How did you get an edition with 6 statues for $400, and then now they're offering another edition or 4 statues for $400. Now there's another edition with 1 statue and a board game for $400.
Yeah,
there's no correlation there.
That one. I'm saying that you're paying for
collector's
something.
editions are a racket.
Well, think about it this way,
sense.
right? The collector's edition for Darksiders Genesis was I'm getting because it comes with a statue for Strife that matches the ones that came in that one,
and then the board game.
So I need that. No, it comes with just that.
Okay,
it's $129.
Yeah.
Fine, right? That's fine.
And you get 4 of them, and it's less than $400 to get the value, but you still get 4 statues. Oh, God. What are you saying
statue.
Now?
The Darksiders Genesis version is $129. You get 1 statue for $129. But that's it, right? You get like a steel book and some other stuff. But on top of that...
perfect pricing for a statue in a game.
I agree. That's fine. Now, what I think happens with the $400 version is that when you're getting a board game that's made for massive sale across everything, board games are already expensive. And ones that come with miniatures and a board and all these things are typically about $80 to $100.
That excuse is invalid, though.
How's it invalid?
Because they're not making thousands of these. They're only making probably a couple hundred.
Which is why the cost is more, first of all, right?
How?
Dude, cost always goes down based on how much you're actually making.
Yeah, but
you can charge a lesser value.
If you're making $580 board games,
yeah,
that's a lot different than making $150 $400 collector's edition statue versions, right?
Well, yeah, but this board game comes with the $400 version, and it's the only way you'll ever get it.
The statue comes with the $400 version of Biomutant. No.
Oh, Don't worry. I'm getting to the point of there's a clear line of where it makes more and more sense, where it's like the $400 one with the board game is a little weird, but it's like it's a one-of-a-kind game that you're never going to get anywhere else. You're paying partially for the fact that it's limited and that it's something that no one else will ever have.
And Darksiders has been a thing for 15 years almost.
Yes, exactly. Now, Biomutant, a new IP that no one knows. It's weird.
That will be on a clearance shelf at GameStop in 6 months after it's released.
I will probably get it.
Guarantee you. Nobody,
because I won't lie, dude. The statue's dope, and I really want it.
It is. The statue's nice, but
not $400.
I would pay $200 at most for that. Take all the crap out. I don't need the pins. I don't need the stickers. I don't need the mouse pads for a PS4 game. I need a mouse pad. It's the useless stuff that comes with collector's edition. That's why I'm all digital now.
Yes.
Screw physical editions. I don't care.
But they've got so much stuff going on. Yeah, sure. They've got, and I don't think this is probably not going to be at Gamescom. It's hard to say, right? When THQ says that they've got 3 unannounced games, it could be anything. One of the things we know for sure, it seems unlikely, but Time Splitters, which is a great series.
Love to see that.
The creator for it has joined the company, and he says he's joining in order to, quote, help plot the future course for this franchise, end quote. So what it comes down to for me is that there are a lot of games that exist in that AA sphere that exist primarily from a PS2 days, some of the PS3 days when there was also a good renaissance of AA games that we've seen THQ Nordic bring back this time. Between THQ Nordic and, Focus Home Interactive. Yeah. We've had a really great run of the mill over great AA games. Things like Vampire and things like Darksiders 3, which I think was great. Darksiders Genesis looks like a really interesting use of that. And then you keep going, you have things like Plague Tale Innocence, which was one of my favorite games this year so far. So when you keep looking at those things, it's like the need for this stuff to exist is fine, and I want to see what they have to show. But when you tell me that before these 3 unannounced games, and you also talk about a year ago they had 57 games, it gets to be weird of how do you land on these things in any way that makes sense.
Right.
there's just a lot going on. The last thing I want to talk about, because it's interesting to see, is that we saw Sega earlier this year talk about not relying so much on new IP and instead leaning on IP that people already like. But one of the things we know is going to be out there is Sega have a new
unrevealed IP
that they launched a teaser website for that you can see, and it's going to be in this thing, and it's a AAA game from what they're saying. And if you look at the website, it looks like the game is probably going to be called Humankind. Hard to say, but across the board,
wasn't there another game called Humankind? It sounds like way too familiar for that not to be a game title, right?
Kind of. I could see that. Now there's the Mankind or the Humankind Odyssey or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's
Ancestors.
Deus Ex Machina, Humankind Divided. Humankind Divided.
Mankind Divided, but
is it?
Yeah,
close enough.
But there is a game coming out
Men
with the thing, which is the Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey or whatever. Pretty sure it's what it's called. But yeah,
I don't know.
Seeing them come out with a new one, I'm always excited to see new IP because I think new IPs have done great this generation, and we've seen a lot of them instead of what I was worried about, that we'd see a lot of people resting on their laurels. Not only have we seen PlayStation do really well with new IP, and I'm glad to say that, we've also seen Microsoft at least try and do new IP, some to mixed success and some to no success at all. I'm not going to say it all. That's a little unfair. But still, pretty muted, and I'd say that you can see some of these things come out and they hit very similar to something like The Order. Quantum Break did not do very well. It sold probably about as much as The Order did. It was reviewed a little bit better, but it doesn't matter in the fact that we're seeing these people try new IPs, and that's what I want to see more and more of. So my takeaway, my final statement about Gamescom in particular is going to be that I think across the board, Gamescom, I want to see new IP, and that's part of why Biomutant is so exciting to me. I want to see a new IP come out into fruition and me see it and get to play it and then end up being great. We've seen a lot of new IP come from the AA sphere, like we've talked about already with Vampire and things like Plague Tale Innocence. But, as exciting as I am for things like Darksiders coming out and being back around because I love that series, I'm just as excited to see what new thing I've never played and never even thought of that someone's going to introduce to me. And that's what I'm excited about.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, the surprises is what really gets you at this. And so I wanted the community's take to be obviously not what you're excited for because it's going to come out in an hour.
What excites you
you
saw. Go ahead.
I almost held up my card on thing. What was your favorite reveal at Gamescom or Com? What was your favorite game showed? Not even a reveal, because it may not be a reveal. You may see something that you really enjoyed about Death Stranding, perhaps, or maybe even you saw Destiny 2 Shadowkeep reveal, and you're like, "Hey, I don't know why it's called a reveal on his tweet. They've revealed it, so it's kind of weird. We might get some new trailer or information about it, but." Yeah, let us know, and hey.
Hope we don't get that annoying world premiere voiceover that they give at Game Awards for everything.
I've got used to it. But if you like the video, like us on YouTube and subscribe. And of course, if you liked us on podcast services, if they have a reviewing outlet for us, please do so. And I'll let Brett take care of us with our delicious Patreons.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.